Hello everybody, my name is Fred with Bravo 1 X-Ray. Welcome back to the channel. I was just getting ready to reload some 223 and I needed to trim up some cases. And I realized that I hadn't posted a video on my RT1500 Dillon XL650 case trimming setup that I have. I purchased it quite a long time ago and I've used it several times and it works great. But when I was I was testing the case length trim, the trim length, and I realized that this thing is such a pain to set up that I wanted to create a video for you guys. I went to Dillon's website, and to be honest with you, I could not find like a downloadable instruction manual for it. And there you have a video on there, but it's like 1 minute and 8 or 9 seconds or something like that. And it's really kind of horrible. So what I'll do is I'm not going to go through the whole mounting the thing and everything, but I'm going to show you how I have it set up, the way that I made it work. You may have some different ideas or something, but the only way I could get it to work is I had to do some special things, and I want to show that all to you so you kind of have an idea. If you plan on purchasing one of these things, I mean, they're awesome once they're on there and they're rolling. I can't even tell you how fast it just makes the whole process. Seriously, about 1,000 rounds, the way I was doing it before, would be like 10 hours of trimming and swaging and, all this other, chamfering and everything else. This kind of does it all, and it also has it all resized for you. So it's kind of nice. So what I do is I do a quick wash of the brass, get all the, range off of it, and then I get it all dry, obviously. And then, it's months, it's been months since I've washed this stuff, so it's dry. And so we're going to go ahead. I lubed it up. I got, you can see it on the bench there behind me. I've got it all lubed up. And I'll just run through a couple cases so you can see how I have it all set up and working. And there's like a vacuum attachment as well that comes with it. I have that removed so you can see it kind of in action. And I'll get the camera as close as I can to the press so you can kind of see the whole thing in action. It's loud, it's kind of noisy, so I'll apologize in advance, but at least you'll get to see how it works and how I have it all mounted up and operating. So right now I have it set up, it's cutting perfectly at 1.750, and yeah, let's get the camera switched around so you can check it out. I don't want to make this a huge long video, but at least you kind of get an idea of how it all works and how we, I don't know. Anyway, so let's get the camera switched over to the press over here, and let's go from there. Be right back. Okay, here we go. Yeah, here's the Dillon RT1500 case trimmer setup here. And I have it mounted to a separate tool head that's just meant for 5.56 223 resizing. As you can see, I have the die secured from the bottom, because if you have this nut up here, you will not be able to get the vacuum thing to fit properly, and kind of defeats the whole purpose. So I had to put the lock ring for the die on the bottom side here. That leaves the opening here for the tool head, the actual carbide bit that's inside of there, and then you have to adjust the height of that with this lock nut, and then you rotate the whole motor here to adjust the tool head height that actually adjusts the trim length of the case. Alright, so I hope you understood that. So I'll just run over it one more time. The die is screwed through the tool head and locked down with this lock nut right here. The actual motor, by the way, this thing creates a huge amount of torque. So both of these lock rings have to be extremely tight, because when this thing kicks up, the whole thing like twists it creates a huge amount of torque. It has no problem zipping through any brass you put through this thing. It rips right through it, so don't have to worry about that. And you know, even with this 1500, you can turn 223 brass into 300 blackout brass if you get the correct die. But I just wanted to make sure that you kind of saw how I had to have it set up, because if you put this lock ring up here, you can see there would be no place for the vacuum to vacuum through. This is the vacuum thing that would go on here like this, and then the vacuum would just draw through there. There's a piece that goes on the other side of it, but you can see how that goes on there. But I left it off just so you can see how this whole thing operates here. Okay, let me put a piece of brass into the machine here, and we'll get it fired up. Again, it's going to be very noisy. I apologize for that. But at least you'll see how it all goes together. So in station 1, I have a Hornady resizing and decapping die in station 1. So that one is actually going to do the resizing of the brass. This one is basically just the neck is gonna go up far enough that you can just trim it off just a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll turn the boom microphone off that I have. I don't know if that'll work. Anyway, so this is going to be very noisy. Again, I apologize in advance, but at least you'll get an understanding of how this whole thing works. The camera's got to be kind of close so you can see everything, but I guess it is what it is. I'll maybe in post I'll try to turn down the volume a little bit so it's not so crazy on you. But here we go. So I have a case in station number 1 here down below. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not. I flip my little flippy screen around here. Yeah, you can see as it comes up. So there's a piece of brass in station number 1 back here, and lubed piece of brass, and it'll go through the resizing and decapping die, which it just did. And so it'll come around to station 2, nothing there. Station number 3, there's nothing there. Now I'll turn the motor on, and that way you can kind of see how it goes. Here we go. As you can see that there's a little piece that's sprayed out there, a little piece of brass that's sprayed out, so it did trim just a little bit. And I'll turn this off. And I don't know if you can, the camera will focus on that or not. Here, let me see. I think it's focused. But you can see how well that trimmed that case. So what'll happen on this is now I'll put it through my wet tumbler, and if there's any like ridges or burrs on there, the stainless steel pins will just take care of those. And then this piece is ready. This piece of brass is ready to go, sized, deprimed, and trimmed. It took me what, 20 seconds to do a whole piece of brass all together. So anyway. Let me get the cameras kind of flipped around again, and we'll do some closing thoughts and go from there. Alright, well there you have it. What'd you think? It's a pretty, it's not cheap, I'll tell you that. It's pretty expensive after you buy the motor, and then you have to buy a separate die for it. It's not a cheap addition to the press, that's for sure. But I think over time, and as well built, I mean, I can't even describe, that motor is probably 5-6 pounds. I mean, it's an incredible torquey little motor, and you tell it really, I thought it was gonna be a little bit louder than that. I hadn't heard it on the camera yet, but it's not super loud. I mean, it's not like you have to wear earring protection when you're using it or anything like that, but it works great. And like I said, I'm only set up to use it for 223 right now. But you know, definitely for 308 here in the future, and 6.5 Creedmoor probably, just to you know, knock them through there really quick. And that way, I mean, and it's so accurate. I mean, I could put 2,000 cases through there, and it won't change. Nothing will be. Every one of those pieces will be at 1.75, just like it's you know, supposed to be. So anyway. That's the RT1500 case trimming attachment for the Dillon line of presses. I'm sure you can do it on a 550. I'm not sure if you can get it on a square B or not, but definitely a 550. You can definitely put it on like on a single stage press, and just if you're just going to do one at a time, you know, it'll do anything that has a standard size thread for the dies. So if you had a single stage press, or if you have the Dillon XL650, or any other of the, you know, RCBS rock chucker, or you know, one of the, you know, a T7 turret even, probably you can knock them out on that thing as well. So it's a really cool piece of equipment. It's just not it's not very cheap, and you have to buy all the dies individually, so that makes kind of a pain. But if you guys are a 300 blackout shooter, and I know that brass can be kind of expensive, but you picking up 223 range brass all day long, and this thing will make this 300 blackout brass like it was nothing. It'll just trim it like it was nothing. So you have to get a special tool head to do the 300 blackout. It's a like, looks like a 650 tool head, but it's thinner because you have to, the die can't be as long because the 300 blackout's so short. So but it can be pretty expensive. But depending on how, that's like all you're shooting, or you're a heavy 300 blackout shooter, this thing could probably pay for itself pretty quickly. Like I said, when I'm doing like 1,000 rounds of brass, 1,000 rounds of 223 brass, cutting or trimming, chamfering, you know, taking out the swage or the military primer pockets, the crimps, and you know, all that other stuff, you know, it's like 10 hours of time for 1,000 rounds. This knocks it down, with the exception of doing the swaging. I understand that, but you know, I have a little thing that you cut them out with on my Lyman case prep center, but so that kind of takes care of that. But I separate all my military brass and my non-military brass, or my non-crimped brass. So like this pile behind me is all non-crimped brass, so it just runs through there. You knock the primer out, trim it, goes into the bucket, goes into the wet tumbler, gets tumbled, let it dry, and you know what, it's ready to go. It's so much faster, and it just makes its life so much easier. So if you're thinking about getting one of those, again, it's the RT1500. I think that like a 1300 was the previous model, and but it would not do the 300 blackout brass. So if you're looking to get one of those for the 300 blackout, you have to get that RT1500. It's the only one that has enough torque to really rip through that brass, because when you're squeezing that brass through a really tight die, and then you're just trim all, you know, you're taking a third of the case off. So it really needs that high torque motor, that at 1500. Again, when you're putting those lock nuts on there, you got to get them really tight. You just can't use like a little the little wrench that comes with the toolkit on the 650. You have to get like an actual open-end wrench or something on there and really torque them down, because that thing, it does jump when you start it up. But that's it. That's the RT1500 case trimming attachment for the Dillon XL650, or the Dillon RT1500 for any press that has standard die threads. Save you a lot of time, and I think definitely a thumbs up from Bravo 1 X-Ray. Anyway, you guys I hope you guys are having an awesome day, and we'll talk soon. This is Fred again with Bravo 1 X-Ray 73.